Now, for us, like this cross-pollination of knowledge that you get when you meet, someone who does something completely different to you, we really believe strongly in that. That's where real innovation comes from, and that's where real creativity is bred. That's why we're really passionate about not just making this only for one group of people, but for everyone. And that's why we kind of asked Alex to come here tonight, because Alex, obviously, he's built 4 massive businesses in completely different sectors using a lot of creative thinking. And that's why I think he really embodies that creative jungle culture. So without further ado, I'd like to bring Alex on stage. So Alex, if you want to come on.
Are we sitting down?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to stand for it?
No, let's do a panel. This is different. I like this. Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Alex. Thank you for coming out. I really appreciate just all you guys taking the time to be here tonight. I also, when I guess a little back fun story is how even this happened. So Bryant actually just reached out to me randomly, just like some of you guys that maybe follow us or know about us. And it was actually recently, I was doing a live, and then he followed up with a question. I think you sent me a question separately to my email. And then I don't know how that happened, but then we met up for lunch, and he's like, hey, I'm doing a speaking event. Would you like to do it? I'm like, hey, okay, cool, let's do it. So what I really want to, first of all, just say, of course, thank you for being here, but I also want to thank you, Bryant, and the rest of your mates who put this together, and for everybody who was able to host this event, just be able to give us a space this evening to be here, to share ideas, to meet other like-minded people. I think it's really cool what you're doing in regards to that thing of putting creatives and business together, because that is really special. So thank you for doing this, and I'm really happy to be here.
It's awesome. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Sorry,
I have to put it up. Yeah, don't worry. I'll be like a rapper. I'm like, yo, yo, yo.
Are you going to beatbox as well later or what?
Maybe. I am from Toronto, so there's like Drake, Weekend, so that's
tough competition, though. Yeah, that's tough competition.
That's my city,
Cool, man. So, Alex, first of all, I think most of the people in this audience know you, but...
Oh, actually, let's ask, who doesn't know me? That'd be great. Sweet.
That's pretty
awesome.
good.
Yeah, it's actually a great ratio. Thank you guys for coming out. I'll hopefully make a positive impression on you guys. So thank you for coming.
So, okay. So, guys, there will be time for Q&A at the end. So don't go crazy and start throwing stuff at me to ask him questions. I'm going to do my best, and there'll be time for Q&A at the end. So, Alex, the first thing that I noticed about you, I actually think I saw you the first time on London Real. So shout out to those guys, because I don't think I would have known you otherwise. And the one thing that kind of stood out to me was you were very adamant that, when you build businesses, you should do it from a place of serving your own need, but also a need of a customer. Now, I look at your hair, and you have a great head of hair, unlike some of us, unfortunately. So it doesn't really feel like you would ever need hair extensions. So how did you end up with a 7-figure hair extensions business? Yeah. Do you want to explain a bit of backstory around that for the 50% who don't know?
Well, it's actually 8-figure business now.
Sorry.
But first to know. So we're doing well. I'm really grateful for that. And we usually don't share numbers too much, but I think the reason we share it sometimes is just to let you know. I think a lot of people don't understand that what is possible, especially with the creative stuff. But I think most importantly, how they came about, from some of you guys that know, I think first of all, to be really honest with you, is really that idea of, I think it all starts at the beginning with when you don't have much. And for us, that's how it really started. We really don't come from a lot of money, although I do have this image of this preppy white guy who comes from money, but I actually don't. I come from the hood. No, I'm serious. I grew up playing basketball, going to community centers, wearing pants sagging on my ass. People questioning my dad would be like, "Did you shit your pants?" That's the actual Alex that was growing up. So that's my image of that people don't know. So growing up on the come up, it was really about how do we just provide and create a living for ourselves and achieve that lifestyle that we want to live. And this is before influencers. This is before anything. So there's a great book. I highly recommend it to everybody to read. It's called The 4-Hour Work by Tim Ferriss, and that really made us. That's how it really started. It made us. What kind of business do we need to do to help us generate? At that time, I think this is a really good clue for any of you guys if you're starting things out. It's like, what's that amount that you need to make to live minimally to the life that you'll be comfortable with? For us, when we started the business, it was just like $1,500 Canadian, which is like probably 750 pounds, just to make you realize how frugal we actually were. But we're living in my mom's house, and I'm like, we'll probably live in my mom's house forever. It's cool, and and we'll just travel. So that's what really that book came about. So that business, just to get to that, I guess, long answer to your question. That business really came about. It was the idea of like, what's the muse? That's what the book talks about. What's the idea that can really help you generate income? So with that business, it really wasn't that, Mimi is a hair specialist or I have anything background to hair, but there was that problem of we were getting married and she needed hair extensions, and and there was nobody servicing that need to how she wanted it. And we're like, bingo, that's the muse. So that's it. So long answer to your question.
No, thank you.
That's how I usually roll. That's how
I think that's a proper answer to your question.
Sweet.
Right.
Want to give you some background so you understand.
Does everyone feel clued in? 50%
Is that good?
of the
That's
audience?
sweet.
Yeah. Cool. So was like you mentioned like you needed a certain amount to live, right? And I'm sure in your banking job you were making that much. Like there was a potential to make that much very soon, right?
No, I was making that. Like I was working at the bank. That's how I met Mimi, my wife, and I think there's a big misconception as well. When you think like, oh, I'm working in a bank, and I think anybody who has ever worked at a retail or a bank retail level, you actually don't make so much money. And I think same in London or any other cities, there's always a big gap. When you start out, you really don't make a lot. And I think it's okay when you're young, but as you grow up, you're like, oh snap, this is not enough. So there is that gap. So I was making that much money. But I understood that I don't even need that much. I'm like, I'll rather have less, but have the freedom in my life. And I think that's what I'm trying to tie it back to that book. It made me realize sometimes it's better to make less, but be in control of your life. Okay. So because I think ultimately you have to really define what are your values. What is really important to you? I think even at the end of today, you can go back and be like, what is my values? What is really important to me that if somebody knocks over this or crosses this line, I just go berserk. It needs to be that intense where if someone's going to try to take this away from you, you'll fight or do whatever to have this value. And for us, for both Mimi and I, and this is what we realized before and even now, our top value is freedom. And I think for a lot of entrepreneurs or people who want to take that path, their value of freedom is so high that they're willing to forego security for that idea of hey, I'm free. So that's I guess the little background.
Okay, yeah. The reason I asked that was because I think a lot of people who are deciding to become entrepreneurs, they kind of go back and forth like this ping pong thing of do I want that? Do I not want that? Because a lot of us have those monetary goals, which, okay, we need this much to survive every month. So the reason I asked that was kind of to really understand, what was that moment? Was it just reading that book that you realized, oh, actually, I really want to start my own business? Or was it getting fired, like you said, that you realized oh, actually, I need to start my own business to achieve that value that I have of freedom?
I think it's definitely a combination. I think we discussed it in our meeting, and some of you that know or don't know, the big thing was getting fired. So before, I was at this banking job where I met Mimi, so I'm really grateful to have that job. So that's the benefit of working at an organization. You get to meet other people. When you work for yourself, sometimes you're alone a lot of times. And so, but I think that idea, what happened when I got fired from a bank, it really kind of tipped me over the edge to and push me in that direction of that, hey, even if you're performing well, which I was at that time, I was at a bank, my manager loved me, we had a great team. I just did something that was outside of corporate rules, you know. Can
you elaborate?
Sure, yeah, I can elaborate on that. I'm just like,
you can't say something like that and not follow it up.
Yeah, basically, long story short, I was working at a bank, almost full time. I was going to school full time at night, and I had a little side business with my friend. We're brokering cars from U.S. to Russia. It's nothing. It sounds illegal because there's Russians involved, but but it's not illegal. So all it means is like there's buyers in Russia who want to buy cars. We're kids who speak English and who broker deals. We just buy cars for them and send them and take a commission. My problem that I did in the lesson to anybody who's working corporate: don't ever use your corporate or work email for anything that's not work related. They check all your emails. So literally what happened to me was straight out of a movie. I got called in like corporate security and like, hello, is this Alex? I'm like, yeah. Like, this is corporate security. We'd like to see you on Thursday. And I'm like, so right away I went to my boss. I'm like, I'm getting fired. And she's like, no way, Alex. Like, come on, look at you're great. Like, customers love you. Like, everything's great. I'm like, I'm getting fired. And I felt it because you know when you maybe doing something a little like wrong. So that's what happened. They just literally pulled me into the office, put like a stack of paper on the desk, and they're like, those are your emails. I'm like, holy, that's a lot of emails. And they're like, we went through your emails, and about 30% of them are not work related. So I'm like, and they're like, what is this business that you do? So they got into it, and then they're like, okay, here's the contract that you signed, and basically it says all of your time should be focused on work, and you're not focusing on work, hence you're fired. And then literally I had to come in with like, you know how you see in movies when they give you a box and you put in your stuff, and it was very like it was very sad because I think at that time I really had that idea of like, I'm gonna be a banker for life. Like I'm a really loyal guy. So I was like, I'm gonna be with this bank forever. Like I thank them for like giving my first job at a professional field. And I thought like I'm gonna be a lifer, and I'll be like a vice president of something. I'll be happy with that in like 20 years. And when that happened, like the whole world crushed. Like, how could they? You know, like I'm gonna be the greatest. Trying to go back in. No, that didn't. But it was really crushing, like soul crushing, because you know you think one thing and it doesn't happen. You know, it was so. At that point, I said, screw corporate, and really screw working for anybody. Like, what? No, wait. It's not. Whoa. I have people working for me now. Like, jobs are good, all right? So what I'm trying to say is that I just realized that for me, it was more important at that moment to take control of my life and to see what this entrepreneurship thing is all about. And I'll tell you, even though from our Instagram and stories it looks glamorous, but it's not. You know, and I think as Vera knows, anybody knows, especially starting out. However, like I said, if that value of yours of, let's say, freedom is so important that you're like, you working for somebody really makes you feel uncomfortable, like go out and do it. I even had, you know, conversations with people who work for me who, let's say, left. And I'll talk to them like, hey, if you're not happy, like, just do it. Like, you have to go out and experience what it's like. Because unless you have that experience, you'll always have regret of like, hey, like whatever. So anyways, another long answer to your another short question.
I think it's always that what if, right? Like, I think we all suffer with that when we're making that transition from employee to employer, I guess. Right? You always suffer with that, like, what if this doesn't work out? All this self-doubt. And one thing
there's always self-doubt.
Yeah, there is.
Sorry, short cord. Yeah.
It's okay. So one thing I want to kind of touch on within that theme is, like, I think one thing that I've noticed amongst like common entrepreneurs is that, you know, once you kind of do make that transition, your mindset does shift a lot. And I wanted to kind of know from your perspective, like, how did your mindset change? Like, was there anything specific that you noticed when you went from being that guy who just got fired at the bank and really wanting to work there to an entrepreneur? Like, did your outlook on the world change? Did the way you view situations change? And if it did, can you explain a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. And the reason for that is, like, I think maybe we would pose it out to the room. How many of you guys want to start your own thing or thinking about it? Okay, cool. That's a lot. Okay, most of you. Sweet. So how many of you guys are still like on the come up? You haven't really made it yet. It's okay to be honest. Okay, most of you guys. Awesome. It's all good. And it will help me better pose my answer here. I think the biggest shift that really changes, and I think you covered it as well, when that happened, and of course that there's that gap of self-doubt, right? And the biggest mindset shift that happens once you make it or you become successful, it's just all the thoughts of, I look back, even there's videos of me when we're just starting out. Like, I think I did a 30-day challenge, and it's on a different channel. I think it's called Finding Purpose, and that's what I was trying to do. Is you can look at that channel. I have, I think, 30-day challenge when Mimi and I had just started the business. We went to South of France, and there's a lot of stuff that I talk about. I even watched now. I'm like, that's the same shit I talk about now. So I haven't really changed, but my attitude in regards to self-belief in myself has changed. Like, that mindset has changed. So what I'm trying to say is that at the beginning, there is a lot of self-doubt. You're like, will this work? Will this not work? Am I just bullshitting myself? I think a big thing that we all feel in those beginning stages, like, am I just a fraud? Am I like for real? And a lot of times you even come to these spaces where you speak to other people, you may not fully feel, because you're like, yeah, like, I'm a businessman or I'm an entrepreneur, but you're making nothing, You're like, shit. So it's not, there's that big gap. And I remember even in that 2 years between starting our first business, which really came off, which was the hair extension and Luxy Hair, I was doing consulting. I was doing kind of social media consulting. That's what I was trying to do because I really believed in the platform and the network. And one of my friends, he's like, hey, could you come in and do consulting for one of my clients? And he had actually a video production company, kind of like you have. He's like, can you just do social media consulting for one of my clients? You come in and I'll pay you for an hour. I'm like, cool. And he's like, yeah. He's like, don't worry, like, I'll just pay you something. And I'm like, whatever, I'll do it for free. I'll come. And I came in, I did the consulting. I just talked the way I usually talk about stuff and social media and what they can do. And then at the end of it, he wrote me a check for $300. And to me, that was like the most empowering check I've ever received since from being fired, because before that I was making nothing, right? So I was trying and doing different stuff, but nobody really paid me for my services. And that first check that my friend hooked me up with for $300, I was like, whoa, I got made $300 in an hour. I used to make that like a week. and that was very empowering. So it made that, so somebody believing in me made me believe in myself as well. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes for you to get your first gig or your first job or your first client or make your first sale of the product to be like, I believe like, whoa, like I'm doing it. I remember the first time we started our Luxy Hair business and we turned it on and we made like 2 sales. And I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, it's incredible. Like people believe in us. Like they actually believe in the product that we were trying to give to other people. So what really changes is that mindset. But that mindset and belief will only change once you take that action and put yourself in that feeling of self-doubt and put yourself out in the world where, yes, you may get rejected. You may not, other people may not pick you or buy your stuff. And that's the really vulnerable part. And the most important thing about that part is to keep going, right? And to keep reiterating. Because even if I look back at our first website, I'm like, that is ugly. Who would have bought from us? But I think as all of us as people, what we really buy from or interact with is when we feel that there is still that authenticity and genuineness. And I think at any level, people want to support other people. And I think more and more now we're moving to that society where as people, we want to support people where we see there's other people behind those brands. So that's why, especially at the beginning, it is great to share your story of who you are and who you are on the come up.
Okay, awesome.
Another long, yeah. Sorry,
I'm
man.
kind of inviting these long answers.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Great questions.
One thing that you said there was like a key operative word, I guess, would be challenge, and I think like that kind of defines a lot of what I know about you and what I'm learning about you. I think just this past weekend you set another challenge for yourself and hiked one of the hardest hikes in Corsica, right? So has that always been something that you've kind of prided yourself on, like just going after every single challenge? Or is it something which you've developed again as an entrepreneur?
To be very frank and honest, I'm not the guy to really do challenges and to embrace them. And I think that's another side of like having a good partner. And that's why I really have to say is that, Mimi is that person who just like, she's competitive. She likes challenges. Where I'm like, I just like to chill and be comfortable, to be honest with you. So I bring that into her. I help her chill and just go on vacations and hang out. That's my style. So I think to that, I embrace it. And I think most importantly, when a challenge comes up, I'm persistent with it. So I don't shy away from a challenge. So even to, I guess, tie in Mimi into this, my wife, shout out to Mimi. Yeah,
a couple of people upset she won.
Well, somebody has to be home. I think the thing is how I'm trying to tie in Mimi and the challenge. When Mimi and I first kind of hooked up and we started dating, some of you may know, but she turned me down like 4 or 5 times, and that was a challenge. And she didn't turn me down because she just turned me down because she actually, in her mind, she's like, this is too good to be true. And that's another thing I think lesson. Honestly, I'm not. Hey. Maybe I didn't communicate myself properly. No, what I'm trying to. This is a good lesson. It's actually a very good lesson to everybody. Of course, but what I'm trying to say is that a lot of times, when in life, when something is like, it's an individual thing. But with Mimi, it was that, like, how is it that this is so effortless and like you are that person, And sometimes it freaks people out, and they're like, shut the door, like this, because I think it comes from that experience with some people in their life. When things go good and they didn't have maybe a good upbringing or they didn't have a lot of trust, what would happen sometimes, like, shit would just hit the fan. So they want to avoid the pain, so they'll shut themselves down to not experience that pain. They're like, okay, this is so good, pain is coming, so I'm going to shut myself down before the pain comes. I'd rather do it to myself before the other person does it for me. So that's what I'm trying to say. Although, good stuff as well here. But I was up for the challenge of, no, this is real. Like, and it's worth for us to seek this through. And that's what I mean about me being persistent when the challenge came, because as long as you believe in what you're pursuing, then it's worth it for you to be persistent. So if anything, with a relationship, with a business, but you truly have to believe that this is there. And sometimes you are delusional. It's a thin borderline of reality and not. So.
No, I think obviously growing up playing basketball as well, like I think that persistence is kind of ingrained in you. If you do play basketball, even like a street level, like that persistence is always there. And then when you see like someone like Kobe Bryant score 81 points, you're like, I can't be delusional. I can do that too. So just to bring it back to that. Yeah, no,
I think even that's a great point even about basketball. And I was actually just listening to an interview of Kobe Bryant. Highly recommend it. It was on Lewis Howe's podcast. I actually know him. Good for Lewis on the come up as well. I knew him when he didn't have it, but it was a great podcast with Kobe Bryant. And what Kobe said was, when he was 12, he was in a summer league and he scored like 0 points. He was like that bad, and so he, instead of being like, oh my god, I suck and I should never play basketball again, what he did was he went back that summer saying, okay, I need to improve my fundamentals. And you talk about that persistence part, and he's like, all I did was I just outworked everybody. So instead of just playing basketball once a week or 2 times a week, he's like, I'll be there every day playing basketball 3 hours a day and just working on my fundamentals. So just working on my 15-foot jump shot, working on my inside game, and just doing it consistent. And he said that's and from 12 to think about it, he went to NBA when he was in after high school. So that means the improvement that he had was massive, but that improvement that was made was really about that persistence of putting in the work. Yeah.
Is there an example? I know you've given a great example from your relationship standpoint of how you've been persistent. But is there something in Luxy Hair or Productivity Planner or something like that from your business life where you really recognize that you've had to be so persistent to get to the end goal?
I think just in general with, business, you have to be persistent. And if you look at, it's easy to see, and I think that this is a great thing about having these intimate events, and so I can share some of the backstory. When people start following us, let's say now, and they look at our life, and they're like, oh, well, that's that's how they just do it. But no, you have to go way back, right? And if you look at Mimi made videos on YouTube every week for 5 years, right? Every week she made over how many 300 tutorials at least herself. And it's the same thing. If you watch those videos from the beginning to where maybe her last video that she made, the improvement is very massive. And that's what I talk about. You need to understand that in anything, you need to put in the work. And I think right now in our current society, we can get discouraged very easily because you're seeing something that has maybe this person's already been working on this for years or decades, and you're judging yourself because you're like, I tried it and my picture sucks, so screw this. Well, it's not gonna work that way. Or hey, I tried it, so I tried to build a website. I went on Shopify because Alex uses it, and I started it, and I'm not selling anything. Well, it's gonna take time. And if you understand that, yes, the odds are still against you, and be realistic with it, and understand that as long as that you're persistent with your learning and put out stuff every day, that's how you'll be able to incrementally grow. Because they say Warren Buffett, I think the famous saying goes is that Siri's trying to talk to me. Warren Buffett, the famous quote that he says is that compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. And it's not only with that with money, but it's more like that with your skill set. And I think any of us know that, especially having a daughter now and witnessing her development from when she was a baby and she's and now she's running around and speaking, and now we're it's the change is crazy. That's compound interest. That's really that's really what us as humans are all here are capable of. We have to look at babies and be like, I came from that. So all of us have that ability to really grow exponentially and develop. And you have to think the same thing of your mindset, of your skills, or anything. It's possible. You just have to put in the time and have to really, and at the same time, most importantly, you have to enjoy it. So that'll be my really 2 cents on persistence.
Okay, that's awesome. And I want to switch speeds here, but stay on the same track.
Let's do it. Yeah, we got to do some Q&A.
I have 100.
Yeah,
questions.
I know you do. Yeah. That's why he did it. He just wanted a personal Q&A.
No, but I was speaking to someone in the audience earlier before you got here, and they asked a question actually along the same lines, and it was around persistence, but it was around persisting with things that you don't want to do, but you need to do, especially when you are trying to grow a business. Now, I'll paraphrase what he said. He said, I'm a painter. I know that like I can deliver amazing, creative, massive canvas pieces, but people just keep asking me to paint them hugging giraffes. I hate doing that, but it pays the
Kind of
bills.
giraffes?
I don't know. No one wants to elaborate on the giraffe?
That's cool. No, I just like giraffes, but yeah.
But yeah,
ahead,
so
yeah.
he was like, I hate doing that,
Yeah.
but like I've taken this leap of faith where I've started my business. I'm doing commissioned art, but this is all I'm getting. How do I persist with this without losing my passion and my creativity?
I think it is a very personal question. I think the way you really balance it out is understand you still have to at life do stuff that you don't enjoy doing. You know, even in business for so many years, I had to do stuff that I didn't enjoy doing. Yes, now I have a team of people who do stuff that I don't want to do. But at the beginning, you have to do everything. And you have to be okay with that. So same thing whether it be your creative or artist. That's the big understanding for a lot of people, whether I think it's a big test as well, if you really are just a creative or are you a business person. And because it's really not for everybody. Because you have to be, if you want to be in business, you have to be okay with dealing with a lot of business stuff, which is a lot of not exciting stuff. But that's kind of just the entry point that you need to do to just be part of it. You know, you have to understand how to manage your books. You have to understand how to invoice clients. You have to understand how to like collect things. You have to sometimes do business that you may not enjoy for you to be able to have that capability to then do the work that you want to do. And then slowly move towards that. Because before you become known for being this whatever crazy artist, well, you have to do enough of work in that arena that you're then recognized and people come to you for that. And maybe sometimes you do have to cut it off and say, I'm not painting giraffes anymore. That's it. And all I do is this kind of stuff, right? And you come to me for that. But then the market will really dictate if they want you to for that. And that's where the truth will really come out. And maybe if you don't have success with that, sometimes you have to persevere to see if maybe in time people will do it. But there is no all the time you get what you want kind of thing. And I think that's a big lesson. And I think that's a great thing of me coming up from having nothing, is because you grow up with like, hey, like other kids have these sneakers or they're doing that and we're poor. So, and you know you're poor. So you know that, well, this is like, I don't have a choice. And if I want something, I have to do it. So if I want to have those sneakers or if I want to go to the movie theater, well, I have to figure things out. So that's why me as a kid, even I would have to hustle flowers on the street and sell them and stuff like that. That's what I had to do. So, but it's that mindset. And a lot of you even here, you may think, but you probably had it easy. Your parents were very nice to you. I worry about Alexa too. I'm like, shit, her life is made. Right, like, but I worry about that, right? It's so easy, like, so like, it's good to have that struggle sometimes, so that you have that character of being okay with when things are not going easy.
Okay, and when you, like you said there, like you want to be careful that you don't become known for a certain type of art or a certain type of genre. That, I guess, is all about branding, right? And like how you position your brand. And you guys have managed to do it really well with Luxy, right? You guys are positioned as the premium hair extension company. And you said when you first started, there wasn't that many competitors, especially in North America. But now, obviously, there's a ton of competitors. So how have you guys managed to separate your brand? Has there been any real, like, very practical steps that you can recognize that this is what separates our brand? Or...
I'll do a two-part on this. I think on the business side, for us, it's always about what do we want to see in this world and what kind of brand do we want to create, or for ourselves, what kind of it's not even about how do we want to be different. We don't think like that. Our focus is really how do we just create something that we ourselves would want to be the customer of? This is the brand that I would want to interact with. So for example, let's say even in that space, it may be not, in hair extensions, like it's not like it's a lot of hoochiness, it's a lot of like, girls with long nails and eyelashes and, very fake. That's the industry. But for us, we're like that. We don't like that. We want the girl next door. We want it to feel natural. We want it to feel approachable. We want it to feel like a little polished and high end. And although maybe it could have been even easier to go the same route, but we're like, this is what we want. And it's been great, so the market likes it. But I'd say the two part, I think on the personal side, I think that's maybe more relevant to a lot of you guys in the business side. The reason we have, other businesses and things like that is also so that we don't just become known for like hair extensions, right? So it's like, what do you really want to be doing that is more true to you? Like I said, the first business was still like for money, and we're really grateful for it. It's amazing, and to this day, we're very proud to what we're doing, what we have done in regards to the industry itself, and also trying to be more transparent, all that stuff. However, it's really about not being afraid of when things are going well for you even, and you may be even succeeding, to be like, hey, I want to, but really I want to try something else. And I want to maybe pivot and experiment with something else that I'm actually really passionate about. So that's the same thing with personal brand, right? So you may be good at painting giraffes, but you're like, but I really want to paint kangaroos. So you paint kangaroos.
Okay, awesome. So we've been through, that transition from work to entrepreneurship, and then getting past that self-doubt, those initial like first customers, things like that. Now, like, I want to switch gears a bit. Just it is I don't know if everyone knows, but it is Mental Health Week.
Oh, wow.
Mental Health Awareness Week. So I want to kind of talk about one thing which I guess is kind of getting a bit more popular, especially in the entrepreneurship circles. We'll just rest here for a second, but like, how have you dealt with the dark sides of entrepreneurship, and has there been dark sides?
I think with me in general is that I'm very grateful that my mom is very positive, right? So even though we grew up in an environment where we didn't have a lot, my mom was always still optimistic about the future. And I think that's all you really need in life. Is like, as long as your future outlook can be brighter and you're like, hey, tomorrow it might be better, there's hope to something to look forward to. I think the darkness really comes in when there is no hope for the future, right? When you start doubting the future for yourself or anything like that. So like I said, I'm really grateful for my mom to have instilled in me and then being present with that allowed me to really believe in the future, even when the present may be not so good. But if there's one tip I can really, I guess, share with anybody that has helped me, and also that's what allowed us to then create the 5-minute journal, was really one thing. And I remember, a guy that really inspired me in the early days that got me into this whole movement of like self-development. Because before, like, same thing, when you grow up in a community where people don't read books really, or self-develop, and it's just paycheck to paycheck. You don't think about there's other ways. And I was working as a stock person at this retail store where my mom was working. It was one of my first jobs. And he gave us Tony Robbins tapes, like actual tapes, like from Tony Robbins. And I would listen to those like day and night when I was younger. But how I'm relating this to the 2 years of maybe on the entrepreneur struggle of come up, I would always kind of have that little Tony voice. I don't know if you guys know Tony, but he's like this big guy who's like very loud and just like very like, you can do it. I don't know if that wasn't a good expression, but he's like, yeah, change your state. So he's actually coming to London soon. So you guys should check him out. Tony Robbins, Unleash the Power Within. Not sponsored. So I think he's coming to London soon. You should check him out. But he's a great guy. But his voice would always be in my head. It was just like, even when you're feeling down, like you can always change your state. You can change your physiology in regards to how you walk, how you talk, how you approach stuff. And most importantly, if you're grateful, you can't be like miserable. Like the moment you're grateful, like right away, like able to cross off other stuff. So that is really the importance of practicing gratitude in your life, even when you have nothing. And to me, in those moments, even when things are not working, I'm like, hey, at least I'm young and I'm healthy. So I got that working for me, like, so I got things to work with. I think, so any of us, if we have that perspective of the gifts that we have, even like, would it be even like just your health that you ground yourself to, or your family's health, or like, hey, like I'm living in a country where I have an opportunity to even experiment or even to get a loan out. Because we take these things for granted, that we live in a society where we can take these opportunities. But, hey, a few thousand kilometers down, there's people who can't have the same opportunities that we have. And we're bitching about, like, this influencer on Instagram, So that's what I'm saying. It's all, like, everything in perspective. And when you hone that mindset, and it does take time, because that's the reason why I say the practice of gratitude is really making it a habit. And that's why we make it public. Like, you can look at what the 5-minute journal looks like and practice it yourself. But it's really about that ability to practice daily your mindset that, like, things are actually really good. But it's just our mind, because we've been evolutionary conditioned to focus on the negative, because that's survival. So your mind goes to the negative because you just that's what it will get. What's it will make you survive another day. Make sure you don't get killed. But we live in a totally different society where most likely that's not the case. So it's okay to focus on the good and get through that. And I think that's really by focusing and honing your mind on that, that's how you're going to get that silver light and really be able to create what you want to create in your life.
Okay, awesome. And you mentioned something there, like, which I think actually I've been doing recently, and I told you about it when we met, the 5-minute journal. So every morning, like, doing that, and every night as well. And I think it is very, very powerful. Yeah. Can we get another one as well?
It's all good.
Yeah, so I wanted to just talk about that for a brief second, because I don't think anyone who hasn't, everyone's using the 5-minute journal? Who is it?
Oh, we got 2 people.
Oh, you got one really active user there. Okay, so like 3 people.
Oh, amazing.
Okay, cool.
3, sweet.
Okay,
the app,
cool.
awesome.
Max
The app
uses
is amazing.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And I wanted to kind of get into that a little bit, just in terms of, like, that is a completely different business to Luxy Hair, and I want to play devil's advocate here a bit. What made you feel like, hey, like, you know what? Like, this is a completely different industry. Even with the hair extensions business, like, you had no experience in that whatsoever. How did you kind of set your eyes and be like, okay, cool, I'm going to, first of all, start a business in an industry I know nothing about, and I'm going to try and compete, and then do it a second time and a third time, and now a fourth time, I guess, while Love Hair is kind of in the same industry. So what is your mindset when you are looking at those types of opportunities, and what are you kind of saying to yourself, knowing that you don't know anything about that space?
Man, your questions. I think what really drives us, and I think what should, like I said, the point I'm making, the emphasis on the first business, still be like money driven. It was still more out of survival. But after you bank your money and you're like, okay, I might as well do something that in a way that really fulfills my purpose of what I want to exist and see in this world. And like, it's not to knock like Luxy Hair. Luxy Hair is awesome. I love that business. What I'm saying is that I don't think we're making lots of women happier, but with the impact that we're making with intelligent change, like, we're getting people out of depression, right? So to me, that just feels like a deeper calling. So I think, but to any business really is that, or even with Love Hair, is like, how do we create products that are more sustainable, good for you and for the environment? Right, something like more deeper and closer to us and what we want to create. And So I think it really, all of our future and current drive really comes from that desire to create the things that we want to see in this world. And I think all I can share with you is what has worked for us. And especially what has really worked for us is really being able to create things that we want to see in this world. And I think that's what entrepreneurship is really all about. You know, I think there's another great quote from, you know, Steve Jobs. I think when he says that when you look around this world, everything that you see is created just people like you who just wanted these things to exist. You know, some guy wanted some big speakers. And he's like, I want some really loud speakers. And somebody else wanted a microphone, right? Or lights or plumbing. I have a huge appreciation for modern plumbing after being in the mountains for for 5 daes and not having access to toilets. It's amazing. So some guys like, I don't want to go in the hole in the woods. I want a room and some privacy.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good one, actually. So then you've created these like 4 businesses now, I think, and you've invested in a ton of companies as well, which have done really well. What have you recognized any specific steps that you take every single time now? Like every time you're assessing a new business idea, are there like, do you have like Alex's 5-step checklist that you go through? Like, okay, this is what makes this a good idea, and this is why I'm going to pursue it.
Not really. I think, like I said, I think it really, that checklist is a lot of your gut involved in doing stuff, and that same checklist, like, will the world be better, like, if this exists, or am I? I think ultimately the test is to any business is that, are you improving the industry or the product or the customer service experience in that thing that you're trying to do, or is that, or even in terms of investment, is that doing something? There has to be some sort of an improvement. If you're doing something like less haphazard, you know, it's fine at the beginning, but at least you have to have the vision for the future where you're gonna like totally like kick ass in regards to this experience in industry, right? But let's do some Q&A, man.
All right, we'll get to it.
I know you have more questions.
Give me 2 more questions, and then
okay.
Then
I'll answer quickly. I really want to get to your questions.
Right. Okay, you started off with Luxy Hair, like you mentioned, with Mimi doing like 300 videos, right, over the course of 5 years. That was a very content-first approach. You weren't being overly salesy, which I think now more and more people are hearing about it, obviously through Seth Godin, through you guys, through Gary Vee, like all these like really prolific entrepreneurs. But a lot of the time, like people look at video content or content in general as like, oh, I need to place a call to action in here somewhere. How did you rationalize in your head that, okay, we're not going to do that. We're just going to give tutorials away and sometimes not even link the product. How did you justify that in your head? And do you know what the ROI on that was?
It's hard to really quantify the ROI, but I think it connects to my previous answer, which is really, to us, we can't do stuff that doesn't feel natural to us, and we just really gravitate towards the things that we want to see. So if we see like a blatant call to action, I'll be like, ugh, like that's like, you know, it's just a turnoff for us. So we just really want to, once again, create something that we ourselves would just vibe with and be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I want to get to know more. So it's just really about, I think that's the thing to really observe for everybody, is that your awareness will help you and guide you towards making certain decisions. And the more we're aware of our own thinking process when we go through stuff, even buy something, that can give you that next great idea, that can help you improve your business. So it's really just being aware of your own things, like, why am I doing this? Or, you know, even when you're scrolling through, you can even assess, why am I following these people on Instagram? Like, what attracts me to following them? Like, what kind of value are they giving me? And then you can kind of reverse engineer whatever value they're bringing, and, you know, why they're successful or why their product is working or anything like that.
Do you think the content space right now is oversaturated, or do you think there's still opportunity there for startups and for normal corporate businesses?
I think overall there's always room, but the thing is, I think there's always room for authenticity in the market, and not a lot of like me too's. It's okay to be like somebody, but I think if you want to really differentiate, you do have to bring something like your secret sauce that's gonna be a little different. And let's say you mentioned like Gary Vee, right? I can't be like Gary Vee, and to me, if I try to fake it and be like Gary Vee, that's not me. I'm not hustle. I'm chill out and live a good life kind of a person. I don't believe in working your ass off, right? So that's not my narrative. Although it makes them successful, that's not something that, so I think so I'm sure if I really go hard on my hey, you can live a good life and still make good money, I can probably be pretty successful with that narrative if I really go all out. But that would be because that's my truth, that's my authenticity, right?
Okay, awesome. And now, final one. What does the next 12 months look like for you?
I think this year is really a year transition for us. Although it doesn't really seem like it, but we're just applying for residency here in the UK. Just
got it, right?
Yeah, no, we didn't get it. I just submitted a bunch of paperwork to the lawyer to submit it. And so we'll see. It's just a year transition. So I think the next year is really about figuring out what does our future look like. And I think an exercise that we're kind of, we're not currently really final because we did it before and it's so powerful, is really doing an exercise of how does your day or life look like in 3 years? We'll say 3 to 5 years, and really mapping it out to every detail to hey, how do I wake up? Who do I wake up next to? What does it smell like? What kind of what do I see outside my window? And just map out your whole day. And the reason I'm saying we're kind of hesitant because we did that before and we're kind of here. So you have to reverse engineer your success in the future, where you're going to be, and then what do you have to do to get to that place of that perfect day or that life? Because like I said, so now it's really about the next 12 months is really figuring out, okay, because once you, like I said, that transition, once you start believing that you are actually a creator of your life and that your narrative day to day, once you take responsibility and stop blaming the government, stop blaming the parents, stop blaming your situation and start taking control. And once you're able to get those wins, you're like, oh crap, I am in charge and my actions will lead to certain results in the future. So I'm capable of shaping my future. So I better be careful in regards to what place do I want to end up in, because the worst thing is when you end up in that place, you're like, shit. It's I don't want it. And I'm trusting you. I just came off a trip where, literally, I'm hiking with Richard Branson. There's this other billionaires. This guy owns a 500 million. They're way ahead of me, right? And not Richard Branson is totally living his life. He's the real deal. But you interact with some people, and you see even though they have 500 million bucks, that doesn't mean they're better than you are, or they're happier than you are. Maybe they even have more problems, right? I'm I don't want to be like that guy. So I love that little clap of whoever did it. Yes. So all I'm trying to say is, try to live your life by your own kind of rules and not by somebody else's, and then figure out what do you actually want, and don't think that just because that other dude or woman is living that life that's exactly what you want, because you definitely don't want to be, especially striving if it's something that's very out there. You don't want to be striving all of your life and getting there and be I'm not happy. You don't want that. So that's what I'm all about.
Awesome, man. And is there anything else that I haven't asked you that I should have asked you?
When's this Q&A starting?
All right, let's switch it up.
Yeah.
Flo, is that mic working?
I try because I just a time check. I do have 30 minutes and I have to run.
Cool.
So it's not about me being rude if I'll run off and get an Uber in 30 minutes. but it's just about respecting myself. Yeah, sweet. Let's do it.
Hey Alex, my name is Faisal. I came from Leicester just to see you, and it was
From where? Where'd you come from?
From Leicester.
Where is it? Is that it's like
100 miles north.
What?
Yeah. So
Thanks,
it was worth it.
Oh, thanks for coming though. So are you staying in London for the night? Or
No, I'm driving back again.
is there a train?
No, I'm driving back.
Oh wow. How long is the drive?
3 hours.
Oh wow. Thank you, man. Definitely ask your question.
Yeah.
You should have been sitting here all this whole time.
So my question is about scaling. I'm currently running a business as well on Amazon and Shopify.
Yeah.
It's been running for 2 years now.
Wow.
I wanted to ask you, how do you go about, how do you decide when you are just all you running the business entirely yourself, and then you have to hire your first, staff members or team? Because you always know they will never put in the effort, regardless of how talented they are. They will never love Luxy hair or whatever the way you do, because it's just your baby.
Did you see that Gary Vee interview with him? Is that why you're saying
Actually, that is exactly the first time I saw you.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, you doing a story with him and, just meeting him. I think I'm having the same sort of moment with you right now.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so that's my question. How do you choose your first team?
I think it's a really great question. And I think where you saw me with Gary, what I'm referring to, I guess how some of you guys discovered me was Gary. He was here in London, and we were just chatting. He was actually supposed to do an interview with Mimi, but then he just freestyled it and started doing this Q&A thing. Or cool, whatever. And my question to him was, how do you get people to be like you? Because you're so dedicated, you're so involved. And then he said, like what you're saying, right, is that you can't expect that from them. And it's kind of like whatever I'm going to say, you probably already know the answer. So you already know this. But one thing I will add, which I don't think Gary was 100% on, is that you can have that mentality of not getting people to be as best as possible in your first 10. You can do that, you cannot care as much when you scale, but your first 5 people have to be good. It's really gonna crush you if they're not hey, he's a 6 out of 10, it's fine. You can't have that. And so the way you find those people, sometimes you have to develop those people. So the way we've been very fortunate and successful, and especially, for example, our current general manager at Luxy Hair. I think this girl's Lulu's 25. You've probably seen her in some of our vlogs. She started off, she was probably 22. And the reason we hired her to be on the path to be general manager, we didn't give her that position right away. Her first role was operations assistant, but she was on a path she had that potential to become general manager. But the reason we hired her was that she was excited. And where you really, I think the most important thing that I see hiring for is really that spark of being a student and learning and being excited. Something that is very lacking here in the UK. Just straight up, it's harder to hire in the UK than in North America. And it's because there is that culture thing of it's a little heavy, right? And work is not as exciting for some reason. Where in North America, all we do is work. Here it's we live for the lifestyle. That's why we live here too. But what I'm trying to tell you is that it is hard, especially at the beginning. However, as your success will really depend on your ability to be a talent scout. And what I mean by that is that person, especially at the beginning, because you don't have that ability to have that fine, even at our level. Trust me, we still can't hire top level A stars because they want to go work for Googles and Facebooks and leading startups. Let's say we're still a hair extension company. It's not that exciting, But the way you do for yourself is that you be a talent scout. You have to kind of see what they can become with your guidance and your leadership to help them become the person they're capable of becoming. And that's going to be the biggest difference. Like a lot of people who are really great at our companies, they started out as customer service. Now they're like leading marketing. And let's say their salary is more than double, then they're getting bonuses and they're getting vacations, all that stuff. Because they're doing awesome. They're putting in the work. But we believed in them and we supported them in that process. And there is going to be a lot of hand-holding from your side. But you really, I think most importantly, have to be that person who is a talent scout, who sees the potential of people and is really a cheerleader for other people. And most importantly, as a leader, I think your job is really to set high expectations, right? And I think Mimi has always said this thing even when she was a waitress. Her manager, something happened, and he told her, what did he tell her? But it was something along the lines of, if I knew you weren't capable of this, I would have fired you a long time ago. And it sounds weird. So at first she's like, that's like, why would you say that to me? But what he means is, you have the potential. Like, if I didn't believe in you, I would have fired you before. I believe in you. I think you're capable of this. And you always want to make people believe even higher themselves than they are. And I think that for me, that's been really the biggest game changer. If being here and having the team be there is really hyping and building people up. Be like, yes, you're capable. I trust you. Like, go on. So it's that balance. But the reason I really went deeper into that answer for you is because you traveled for so long. So hopefully you got your drive's worth. But that is the magic of being an entrepreneur and really being a leader. And I think to you, it's a great position that you're in, that you're even thinking about it. And the next thing I can tell you to that question as well is that if you're on the verge and you have that kind of disposable income to be able to bring somebody in, do it. Because another great advice that I got from one of my friends and kind of mentors, this guy Andrew Wilkinson who runs MetaLab. They did UX Slack. He's really successful. He's my age, he makes me look silly. And what he told me, his advice that his dad told him: hire people before you think you're ready. Because trust me, when you have people coming in, you're like, oh shit, I'm paying these people. I have to show up. I have an assistant here in London. I'm just happy because she just shows up, because I'm like, I have to do work. Otherwise I'm like, I'll just take a nap in the other room, So sometimes having people really pushes you. So I'll just say, do it and really be the coach and that leader and be supportive of them and have that understanding. As long as you have that understanding, it's cool. But they're capable of becoming like you, even better. Like our general manager, she's awesome. She's kick-ass.
Awesome.
Sorry, that was great.
Who's got the
Have a
mic
safe
now?
drive back.
Anyone? Who's got?
Yeah, right here. Oh. Hi, Alex. My name is Juliana.
Hey, Juliana.
And thank you to Creative Jungl for this great opportunity.
Woo! Creative Jungl.
So, Alex, you talk about identifying a lot with a struggle and that kind of upbringing. I'm wondering how, when you made the decision to leave, well, you were fired, but when you stuck with that and went into being an entrepreneur, how did you have that trust in yourself, differentiating it from doubt, but trust in yourself that you were making the right decision?
To be honest with you, I did get fired. So what I'm saying is sometimes that push, I don't know if I would have made that decision. To be honest, I'm being very transparent. So I'm not saying to do stuff that will get you fired. But what I'm saying is it takes a lot of self-belief to take that leap. Somebody else did that, maybe life did that for me, right? I was put in that position. Or maybe what might happen is you may have an opportunity where like, hey, I can try this out. I'm living with my parents maybe right now. I may not be living with my parents all my life. But the self-belief part is I think I covered it earlier, is that don't expect that you won't have doubts. Like the doubt will always be there. It's not going to disappear. All you'll get over time is just more confidence in your abilities to be able to do certain things. But the doubt is still there, especially if you're going to do something that's like very where you haven't been before. So that's all I can really tell you is that be okay with your doubt. It's natural. But the way to overcome doubt is by taking that action and to seeing things through. And sometimes even if it doesn't go your way, you're like I said, we've covered, I think, deeply is that persistence. And another thing is get around, like if you, this is the great things, or I think the great thing for you guys, see me here speak live, is that it just brings other like point of real, and it's like, oh, okay, this guy is real, and now I'm hearing him speak, and I feel that he's coming from like an authentic place, and that gives you more belief in yourself of your own thoughts, because we all know what we need to do, and we all like all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything new. You guys know all of this stuff, but me saying it, just like, and it's like, okay, this guy kind of made it. So if he's saying it, that means it's legit. Like it gives you more of that self-confidence to go through with your actions. So same thing. I was just in Corsica hanging out with ultra high net worth millionaires and billionaires or whatever, and I listened to them. I'm like, shit, they're no smarter than I am. I should definitely like think bigger, and not limit myself to just be like, okay, here. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying you create that loop, get around other people who encourage you or listen to other people that do it, and with time, but most importantly, you'll have to take that action. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Next one. I think we had one up the front here. Flo. Oh.
Hi Alex, my name is Shravani. Hi.
Hey.
First of all, I would just like to say that thanks for being the way you are. Like, you have inspired me so much. So just thanks for the work you're doing. It's really inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much. It really means a lot. I'll go sleep a little better tonight.
The reason why I chose London for my post-graduation is because I wanted to meet you and Mimi.
Oh,
some
wow.
way.
You
So
came, where you come from?
I'm from India.
You come from India
Yeah.
to meet us.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So my question to you is, when we are like, when one is starting out on something or is trying to start on some project, how do you not let the whole like the grandiosity of world get to you, or get intimidated by the fact that there are so many people out there doing the same thing which you are doing and maybe they're good at it? So how do you not let that fear demotivate you?
I think at the same time what you said, it should also be encouraging. And what I mean by that is like, I think I covered it earlier, but like it's perspective. And that's the whole thing of like even the reason why it's not an upsell, but why I encourage doing practices like the 5-minute journal or anything else that gets your mind seeing more of the positive that is in this world is really, it can help you shift your perspective in these situations. So in the situation that you're saying is like, okay, there's so many other people trying to do the same stuff, like the odds are against me. But at the same time, the way I look at it, I think the other time, I think I heard Gary saying as well on his podcast how 98% of people will never even come close to building a business that will do more than $1 million in revenue, let's say, right? And so some people can look at that stat and be like, that sucks, like the odds are against me. But the way I look at it, I'm like 98% is actually pretty good. Like 2% of people, let's say succeeding or even getting close to that thing, like those are actually pretty good odds. That's 2 out of 100 people, right? So if you put it in perspective of like 1,000, million, billion, that's a lot of people, right? And I think more than anything, especially living in London, you're like, damn, there's so many of these wealthy people who are driving up this real estate. So all I'm saying, what I'm trying to say is like reverse engineer and see that actually, if you scale up those numbers, there's still more people on a number basis, not percentage basis, but numbers basis, who do well or who succeed or who things work out. And really your job is on connecting to the other answer that I gave, is to understand that if other people are doing it and they're succeeding, it's not like that they're not, it would be bad if what you want to do, people are not succeeding at it at all. If you live in a community somewhere in some countries where it's a war or whatever, like, and there's no market, there's no like consumers, and it's just survival. That's a very different place to be, where there's already people succeeding and there's percentages. So all I'm trying to say is that switch the perspective and see that there's other people who are doing it, then it's up to you to learn what these people are doing that it's helping them increase the odds of being more successful. Because another really great advice that I got from also one of our friends here and also mentors is Misha. He runs Burger and Lobster, Goodman, all the things, really successful. And we were with him a few months ago in New York, and we came into, it was really funny. It was late night. We were coming after dinner, and we go in one of his restaurants, and the hostess is like, and this guy's the owner, but she doesn't know him because it's like it's so big. And she's like, "Oh, hi! Like we're just about closing in 30 minutes, but sure you'd like to have a table?" And he's like, "Yeah," and he just like walks through. It's his place. He owns it. But at that moment, I asked him, I'm like, you know, to look at this location, you know, just that location itself would generate more than $10 million, let's say. And I said to him, to you to be in this position where they say the restaurant business is one of the toughest industries to be in, right? So how do you answer to that of like you're for sure gonna fail if you start a restaurant? And he told me, he was like, Alex, restaurant business, any business, like all businesses are difficult, right? But if you're approaching a certain business, you have to understand that you have to be a professional to succeed. So you have to do the things that help the professional succeed in that thing. So that's what I'm trying to tell you is that instead of focusing on the 98% of fail, and that's what a lot of us do, they're like, oh my God, most people fail, I'll probably fail, and that's what you're focusing on. Focus on what the 2% do, or the 1% or the 0.1% that make them succeed. And that's why even for me, I remember, you know, coming up from the struggle, I think in those communities, a lot of times people knock positive thinking, or they knock like reading about other people's success stories and things like that. They're like, oh yeah, they're just sharing because they just want to make more money and all that stuff. And the comments that people leave on our stuff, it's like they're just trying to prove to themselves why they shouldn't take the action. But in reality, if how I was thinking I might come up, I'm like, okay, what are these people doing that make them live the life that they live? I wanna be there. So that would just start reverse engineering what they do and get to that. So that'll be like, once again, my longer answer to your question. But it's really about that kind of mindset and thinking. And I think it's really relevant to everybody, because if you really study, there isn't that, like it's not even from like I said, my past week hanging out with these wealthy guys, I just realized like, you just have to do these things, you know. You have to have a vision. You have to put in the work. You have to work with other people. You have to build a team, especially as you get bigger. That's going to be the biggest challenge. Is really to build a team of other people who believe in the vision that you believe in as well. But overall, it's a pure mindset game, and that's why if you look at any of my stuff that I talk about or anybody else, and you may think like, yeah, mindset, really? Like, give me the tacticals. Like, it's all here. Like, once you can turn it on to see that it's possible. Like I was with some 19-year-old. He got like knighted by the queen, and I'm like, this guy's nothing special, right? No, but that's what I'm thinking. But he is special because he freaking believes in himself, and that's the reason why he's getting all these opportunities. So it's all that it takes. So your self-doubt and that you've been raised with is the thing that will stop you at most things. It's not that the world is hard or the thing is against you. It's just mostly your mindset, and things are there for the taking if you're willing to put up what is needed by the marketplace or anything else. We probably need like 10 minutes.
Two more?
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, 10 minutes.
So we got
I have 10 minutes.
one up here, one up at the front.
Yeah. Whoever's you're very brave to sit at the front. We got 2 seats, or they're reserved. I don't know if you guys were.
Sorry, yeah, go for it. I mean, is this working?
Thank you. Hi, Alex.
Hey, what's your name?
It's Hannah.
It's Anna. Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Romania.
Sweet.
So my question is about pushing further.
What is it?
About pushing further.
Uh-huh.
So you mentioned your employee called Lulu. the same way she was hired, I was hired for my current job. And after I obsessed illogically about the fact that I was gonna get fired in the first 2 months of my job, which meant very, very slow growth, I picked up new responsibilities and I've been doing great, but I want to go further and I absolutely love my job. But I'm struggling with putting the time to learn more outside of work hours. It's almost like there's always something else, like chilling, or I don't know, hanging out with friends, or there's always something. So I'm struggling to find that motivation to take it further, although I really want it. So that's my question. What am I supposed to do?
I think to you, you know the answer, right? I just think it's a very personal thing. What I mean by that is, what I said at the beginning, it really comes down to your values and your priorities, right? Like, what are your priorities in life? Like, what are your top values that you want to achieve, and what are your priorities? And once you assess like the things in that, you're able to realize, you know what, at this time right now, it's more of a priority to do this. So I'll give you an example real quick. For Mimi really, like, she's not as involved in the business now, because for her, she's like, Alexa's way higher priority than anything else, our daughter. So she's like, that other stuff, like, my time with my child is way more important. So for her, that's priority. So if there's a call or there's a whatever, she'll always take Alexa's priority versus doing business, because for her, that's priority. For somebody else, business can be priority and not their children, right? So that's one example. But all I'm trying to say is to you, and I welcome the second question, is that what is really your priority, and how bad do you actually want to push further? Because if you know you want to push further, trust me, you'll find the time. Like, you'll sleep less, you'll hang out with people less. When we're starting a business, I didn't hang out with anybody. Like, it was like I had no friends.
So I'm gonna contradict you and tell you that it's not a priority problem.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a psychological problem of I simply don't know how to be successful. I know how to, be like judged and fail at certain things and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess for me is, how do you think about being successful and just go for it?
But I think you just said it, right? You answered your own question. You said that it's a psychological problem. You're limiting yourself of getting there. So that's you. So you already have your answer. Okay, I have a psychological roadblock that doesn't allow me to get to this next level. So now you have to do the work of trying to figure out, what do you need to do to overcome this psychological barrier to help you get there. That's going to be your own personal work, right? It's the same thing, like I said, for anybody. For me, it was at the beginning, it was difficult for me to believe in myself that anybody else will even give me money, right? I think it's a big roadblock, I think, to becoming like, especially I think when, say, in our business, once we made our first sale, like the first sale that we made was probably the biggest, most important sale that we've ever made, because that made me believe, like, oh my God, people are actually willing to pay me money for something that I've created. But the only way I was gonna find out and test that limit is if I actually go out and put myself in that position where I show up and by here world, I created this, right? And that's a very vulnerable moment to be in, because the world can be like, don't want it, bye, right? And then I'm like, oh, like I can get crushed. But you can then still show up again if you need to. Well, all I'm just trying to say is that the only way for me to be able to find out how to overcome those psychological limits is for me to put myself in that position where I can test that hypothesis. So for you, whatever you think is your limit, or whatever you think your roadblock is, you have to be like, okay, well, let's see. And put yourself in that position where you think you're not capable of doing stuff, right? You have to put yourself there. And like I said, if it's still high enough priority for you to not for that other thing, but for you to figure out what's stopping you and how do you overcome it, you can then will be moving in the right direction to overcome that. And then you'll see once you overcome it, you'll look in the past. You're like, really, I worried about that, you know? Like, but it's a journey.
Thank you for being here and inspire us all. It's just a really quick question. Have you ever thought of recording your day-to-day life doing business, or sharing more of the process, just inspiring people, or for example, if they're starting off or dealing with suppliers, or how to choose the right supplier for your products, for example, with beauty, for example, congratulations with Love Hair.
Yeah.
So the serums, for example, if you're sourcing from China, are they suitable in the United States? What are regulations, especially for blending different oils? Like, just the general example. Is it like from trying and then just testing, or how you're checking regulations and things like that?
Yeah, that one.
Sorry, that's so technical. Probably.
Yeah, it's not technical. I think on that front, a lot of that the team handles that now. Like my day to day is really boring. Like, no, I'm honest. Like, I think even right now we have a big struggle, I guess, with having an assistant. And why I'm saying that is because we have a team teams that are in Canada and Toronto where there's staff, there's culture, they go out and whatever, like they have meetings, it's fun, it's exciting. Here is just like I show up in the office and I'm just on my computer answering emails, and that's it. Like that's my day. So it's not very exciting. And what I mean by that is, like, so the team will handle a lot. So we'll just have, calls and meetings and like WhatsApp messages. Like I probably will pull up right now and see there's already 9 WhatsApp messages where I will get back to people, right, in regards to decisions, things like that. So a lot of it happens like actually like in Slack, WhatsApp, all that stuff. And a lot of like that's the thing. As you scale, that's the beauty, just to you on the coming from that's the best. When you scale, you have other people doing stuff that are even better than you at doing those things. But I think day to day, that's the thing. Is like I think a lot of entrepreneurship is glamorized, but really it's just sitting down and doing the work, right? It's doing the research, figuring things out. Me sharing how I came up with like a certain thing, it's not gonna make a day in you, because you'll have to basically, even I say to our team, like, if any time you come to me and it's something that if I'll have to do the same thing that you have to do, if I have to look something up or I have to research it, you might as well do it yourself. Like, I'm not any better than you are. And what happens with time, like everyone else, like, some people struggle with that in our company, but most don't, because they feel empowered, because they're like, oh shit, like I actually can do stuff here. And I'm actually the one making decisions. I'm coming up with solutions and things like that. So that's how I would say it. It's not that exciting, but you have to be excited by the non-exciting stuff. Let's do one more. One more. I think you had a question.
Hi.
Hey.
I just moved here from Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
So I came up from a culture of just you live to work, essentially. So my question is a little bit more about like work-life balance. And so whether you're in corporate or you're an entrepreneur, that line is really blurry. So I guess when you guys were starting out, and now me with Alexa Love, how do you guys balance work-life? What does that look like? And then do you have any tips?
Oh, man. I think same thing on a lot of these things. I think even to way to wrap it up, what I can say to anybody, even me being on stage, like answering these questions, I think a lot of them are so personal to your own life, and even, I would say, even spiritual level, to your own soul. And what I mean by that is, I think to anybody, is that instead of even looking up here, I have a privileged position to be on stage, to be answering questions, but in reality, I think a lot of us, we know the answers to the questions that we have. We just don't want to take the responsibility making that decision of like, hey, I want to do this. So that's why sometimes it's easier to listen to somebody else and do what they're doing. And sometimes it's okay to do that in regards to certain things. The reason with like work-life balance, I think it is a very personal thing where, for somebody, let's say that example of Gary Vaynerchuk, right? For him, he has that extreme example where he just works his ass off, like Monday to Friday for sure. He's pulling in 12 to 16-hour days, and he's proud of it. He loves it. It fires him up. For him, that's actually balance. Like for him to actually do a 9 to 5 and to have that time with his maybe family, whatever, it actually wouldn't make him happy. I'm being very honest with you. I think him as a person, he gets fired up and he loves, doing that. And for him, that is balance, to work so much. That allows him to be at that level. So for you, maybe it's a totally different thing, but you have to feel it out. Even with myself, where you're always you have to see is that you're always trying to, there won't be a point where you'll totally feel like, hey, I'm balanced, right? I think you have to see yourself as like you're always testing and figuring things out that may work for you, that may not work for you, but you're always testing. And sometimes maybe you'll come close to, you're like, hey, I'm really enjoying this, or this is really great. So for me, and my experience, is how we really do stuff. We're constantly testing and seeing what works, what doesn't. This is taking, going away for 2 months in the winter. Do we like that? Does that work? Can we still balance? Or just taking a week here and there, or taking a day here and there. And I think overall for you, so like I said, it's really a personal thing. Test things out, do it. And I think most importantly, you'll see you're now in Europe. And what I mean by that is like you have 5 weeks vacation right off the bat. It's not like US, and I think it's a very, once again, privileged position that a lot of people do have. Well, if you work for somebody else, if you work for yourself, you probably won't have anything, like vacation-wise. So what I'm just trying to say is that even for you is that take advantage of that ability. I think a lot of people don't. Of being able I love we had a nanny for a short period before nanny was like, okay, I'm not really doing anything here, so what's going on? So she had to go. But what I'm trying to say is why I'm bringing her up, she was so great. This nanny that we had, she traveled more than we did. And I was so impressed. I'm like, wow, like you don't make that much money, but you always make the best of your weekends, of your vacations, time off. Because once again, she made it a priority for her. That was balance for her. For her, it was important to travel. It was important to do all these things. But it was really a personal thing. And I think that message I can tell you or anybody else, just in regards to anything, whether it be business, personal life, is that you have your life to really figure out what is the thing that you're going for. And like I said, even with us, in this kind of transition stage right now, you're constantly like in this place where you're kind of, okay, you get somewhere and you're like, okay, cool, this is great, but you then assess, do I really feel content here? And sometimes you can be honest with yourself, like, you know what, I really like, this is really good. Like I'm satisfied with this, even though Alex or Gary says hustle. Like I like spending time with my family, and I have a good job, and I do volunteer community service, and I feel fulfilled. Who the hell says this is wrong? So I think the most important thing for anybody is really to, the more what success is how can you be in touch with yourself to know that this is right for you. Right, and when you have that, when you're grounded in that reality of being safe with what you're doing in life, whatever it is, and you feel good about it, that is balance. That is your success. That is your peace. No matter how much you're making, right? That's all I can tell you from even making a little money, from even being around people who made a lot of money. It really won't make a difference. The difference that will be made in your life is if you find that peace and contentment in yourself to just how you feel, right? So that is work-life balance. Like I said, for some, it's extreme hardcore. For others, they need to be on the beach or whatever. For others, it's just having a regular life, right? But don't let anybody else judge you or think anything of you for what you think is balance, right? It's for everything, I think, it's a very individual thing. And I think the reason, just to finish this all up, that's how we really lead our own lives. Especially with Mimi and I, we just try to create our own little island our own little life that we feel where we like coming to or we enjoy being. And people can say all they want, but at the end of the day, as long as I'm happy, life is great. So that's all I can really say. And so hopefully that answers your question, and welcome to this beautiful place called London in Europe. Definitely take advantage of the EasyJet and all the other great things about just this little piece of land.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, guys.